Hi, I'm Swain Johnson. I'm Strategic Projects Director at Orkney Islands Council. Welcome to this video presentation on Orkney's Community Wind Farm project HOY, which is part of the pre-application consultation process in advance of submission of a planning application for the project. So first of all, let me start by apologising that we can't be there in HOY personally. Obviously, we're hugely disappointed that we can't come out and talk to you face-to-face about the latest plans, but given the current situation, I hope that you can understand why it wouldn't be possible or indeed sensible for us to do so at the moment, and also why we had to cancel the planned event in HOY last month as well. So the Scottish Government has recently introduced emergency legislation which allows pre-application consultation to take place without a physical public event. And that really is in recognition of the economic need to keep the planning system functioning, and also because of the uncertainty around when restrictions might be lifted as well. And that's particularly important for this project, given the tight deadlines that we have in terms of meeting the needs case conditions set out by Ofgem to secure a new electricity interconnector for Orkney. So really, if we don't keep moving forward with this planning application now, we significantly risk wasting the resources that have been put into the project to date. So again, whilst we're really disappointed that we can't be there in person, and acknowledging the limitations of the current situation, we have put considerable effort into designing a consultation which we hope can reach as many folk as possible, and give everybody the opportunity to understand the proposals and to make your opinions and voices heard as well. So what we're going to be doing includes making project information and feedback sheets available online, by email or by post, and we'll also answer questions and take comments via any of those channels as well. We will be offering one-to-one discussions either on the phone or via Skype, where we can talk through the proposals and any questions you might have, and take feedback as well. And we'll be holding a live and interactive web-based event where people can hear from the project team and ask questions and provide feedback as well. So all of the details for this will be published in the local press, on social media, and be available on the project pre-application consultation webpage as well. So before we get into the detail of the project, perhaps a quick reminder on the purpose of pre-application consultation. And that really is for you, the community, to be better informed about the development proposals and to give you the opportunity to contribute your views before a formal planning application is submitted to the planning authority. So in other words, it's your chance to tell us as developer what your opinion is so that we can take account of that before we submit a planning application. When we do submit a planning application, you then have another opportunity to make your representations to the planning authority through a separate process. So without further ado then, let's get into discussing some of the details on the project. In this video, as well as hearing from me, you'll also hear from David Hannon, who's project manager for the project for the council, and also from Jo Phillips, who's a landscape architect, and she'll talk you through some of the visualizations of the latest design of the project. So whilst the purpose of this presentation is to discuss the HOY project, I think it's first of all important to consider the big picture of where this project fits within the wider proposals in Orkney. So I appreciate that anyone who's been to one of our events before may already be familiar with some of this material, but I hope you don't mind me covering some of the details again. Orkney's community wind farm project includes 3 potential wind farm sites, one in HOY in the area around Wee Fee, another on Ferry in the North Isles, and another at Quantinus in St Ola. You can see where each of these projects are located on the map, highlighted with a red mark. You'd also notice that the map also displays several other potential wind farm sites that are being investigated by other private developers. And we've also shown the Finsdown substation, where it's likely that any new project will have to connect back to for a grid connection. So in terms of the council projects, at this stage in the design of each site, we're looking at a potential capacity for 6 turbines at approximately 150 metre to tip. So that's a generating capacity of about 28 megawatts on each site. The notable thing here, it really is the size of the turbines that we're proposing. They are larger than any other on Orkney. And to give you some context, I think the height of the HOY community wind turbine is 68 metres to tip. So we're talking about turbines that are more than double the height. But when you're doubling the height, we're getting more than 4 times the power output. So you can see where the economies of scale come into for this. So there's several goals that we're looking to achieve by developing this project. Really the aims are firstly to generate income from a publicly owned wind farm project to support local services in the community and also to deliver community benefit. Together with other developers, we're also trying to support the needs case for a new interconnector for Orkney, which would open up wider economic benefits and further opportunities for Orkney's energy industry. And we're also trying to make sure that if we're going to have a new cable, as much as possible of the benefits stick within Orkney. And really the best way of doing that is to have local ownership, which benefits everybody and not just the shareholders in the project. So we'll go on now to talk about the benefits in a little bit more detail in the upcoming slides. Okay, so one of the key aims of the project obviously is to generate additional income and to essentially use that money to deliver community benefit in various different ways. As a council, we have significant issues around continually reducing budgets and increasing demand for public services. So the additional income from Orkney's community wind farm project could make a big difference to that picture and to people's lives in Orkney really as well. So the issue of community benefit has been raised frequently with the project team at various public events that we've done. And since then, in September last year, the council has agreed on some guiding principles for community benefit for the project, which really helps to clarify some of those aims. So the council has agreed that the key purpose of Orkney's community wind farm project is to generate profit to be used for the benefit of the people of Orkney, and that this will be done via a community fund to be used in the interests of Orkney and its inhabitants. They've also agreed that the project will be financed in such a way that we can achieve profit which can be used for community benefit as soon as reasonably practical, and that it won't be possible for private individuals to take a shareholding in any project. And that's really key as a means of making sure that the benefits are socialised amongst as many people as possible and not just held by those who can afford to take a shareholding. Importantly as well, the council's agreed that communities located closest to projects will be impacted most by developments, and therefore these communities should get a location-specific community benefit payment. Now, the exact way in which this location-specific community benefit payment will be delivered hasn't been decided yet, and we would like your views on how you think that should be done. That is, however, a separate issue to the consultation that we're running at the moment, and so we'll be coming back and talking to people about that in a separate consultation exercise later in the year. So on top of the direct financial benefits to the community, the project will also enable the council to join other local developers in meeting the requirements for securing a new interconnector for Orkney. As you might be aware, the grid in Orkney is completely full now, and so it's very difficult for any new energy projects to be developed. And we think that a new cable will bring significant economic benefit to Orkney and will also substantially support the vital renewable energy industry in Orkney as well. So Ofgem has now conditionally approved the needs case for a new 220 megawatt interconnector linking Orkney with the Scottish mainland. That approval is dependent on at least 135 megawatts of new wind farm projects in Orkney, either being awarded a contract for difference, so that's a revenue support mechanism, or being judged likely to be developed by 2021. That term, likely to be developed, has been defined, and it means that a project should be financially viable and pass an audit set by Ofgem. Must have signed a relevant grid connection agreement and must also have planning permission by that date at the end of 2021. So the wider economic development value of a new cable to Orkney could be really significant. But what is critical in maximising that benefit is making sure that we have a substantial proportion of local ownership of projects connecting to the cable. And that is something that's really critical in helping the jobs and income remain in Orkney. And that's a key driver behind Orkney's community wind farm project and one of the reasons that the council is behind the project. Separate to this, climate change and the imperative to reduce carbon emissions are another really important driver for the project. Which really could go a long way in helping to create a carbon neutral future for Orkney. As you may or may not be aware, Orkney has already produced more than 100% of its electricity needs from renewable energy since 2014. But we still produce a lot of carbon, particularly in transport and in heating, and there's still a lot more we can and need to do in order to decarbonise. To give you some context on this issue, the Office of National Statistics has estimated that Orkney's carbon emissions are 192,000 tonnes of CO2 equivalent per year. And we think that each of our projects, if built, could offset around about 40,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide a year. So for 3 projects, that's 120,000 tonnes per year. So they really could make a big difference to our emissions. At public events, we regularly get asked about why we've selected the 3 sites we have, and indeed why we haven't selected other potential sites. So this slide really is just to demonstrate that we have been through a rigorous process in selecting sites that we feel offer sufficient scale to be economically viable, and which also we think have a reasonable chance of gaining consent through the planning process as well. So what we've done on this map of Orkney is to draw a pink 700-metre buffer around all residential properties in Orkney as areas that are likely to be unsuitable for development just because of their proximity to people's houses. And we've also, in the various hatched coloured areas, superimposed all of the internationally designated areas in Orkney where it would be highly unlikely that consent could be achieved. So you can see that by doing both of these things, you actually exclude a huge amount of Orkney as being unsuitable. And it leaves a number of kind of smaller white patches, which are potentially suitable sites. So we've investigated any of those patches which we think looked to be of sufficient scale to house a project, and we've ruled them in or out for any number of reasons. And we've then whittled down our list to what we see as the best 3 options. The overall scale is really important here as well, because we started off with proposals for about 100 megawatts on Hoy, which has since reduced to less than 30 megawatts. So we have tried to pick up other sites to take us back up to a similar level of megawatts, which we think could make a meaningful contribution towards the needs case.
I'm David Hannon. I'm Strategic Project Manager for Orkney Islands Council. Now that we have covered the wider project aspects, I would like to share a bit more of the details around the site at Hoy, as there has been significant progress in the design since our last public event. I will begin by giving you an idea of what we will include on the site should development proceed. The map on this slide shows the red line boundary of the site. Inside this boundary you can see the 6 turbine locations, labelled T1 to T6. The roads between each turbine, and the other permanent and temporary infrastructure. The permanent components that will be on site for the lifespan of the project are the 6 turbines, a hard stand at the base of each turbine for the construction and maintenance of the turbines, an on-site substation where the turbines will be connected to by underground cables, and a permanent met mast which will be used to optimize turbine performance to ensure we get the best and most amount of energy as possible from the site. During the construction of the project, there will be some temporary infrastructure on site that will be removed once construction has been completed. This will include a compound for materials and machinery, and a blade laydown area at the base of each turbine. There is also potential for borrow pits for the aggregate for building roads and foundations. This is yet to be determined. Due to the location of the site, Lyness Pier is the most practical location to have components delivered to. From this location, components will be transported to the main access track below weat. The roads leading up to the turbine locations will be upgraded and new tracks constructed between the turbines. As I mentioned, the turbines will be connected to the on-site substation by underground cables. From this point, it is likely to connect it to the Finstown grid supply point. The route and method for this connection are yet to be determined and will depend on a number of factors. It is too early in the design process to have any clarity on what options may be available. But this grid connection element of this project will be subject to a separate planning application. When we last came to you, we had started an initial design and we had shown you what the layout may look like. Since then, there's been considerable work done and the layout has evolved substantially. I'd like to show you on the map what has been updated since we were last with you and what influenced these design changes. On the map, you will see the initial turbine locations marked as a grey triangle and the new turbine locations as a black circle. As you will see, the turbines have shifted to the east of the site, moving several of the turbines outside the wildland area and reducing any impact we may have on the local bird population. We have managed to do this without coming significantly closer to any of the residential properties to the east of the site. Moving the infrastructure to the east of the site has brought several turbines closer to the underground tanks below weat. As part of our design, our engineers have ensured there is an adequate safety buffer between the existing substructure and the proposed turbine infrastructure. Other aspects you can pick out on the map are the residential properties and the 600-metre buffer that we have applied around these properties, the burn of ore and several other watercourses that run through the site, the natural heritage sites to the west, and the telecommunications link that runs to the east of the site. In the following slides, I will go into a bit more detail as to how we have considered these aspects in the design process. There is quite a lot to consider when analysing the potential impact on the local area from a wind farm development. All these aspects are used in optimising the design and producing the environmental impact assessment report. An important element to any development, especially one located in a location as visually appealing as Orkney, is what will the visual impact of these large turbines be on our landscape. As part of the assessment, we have undertaken a landscape visual impact analysis, which is fed into the siting of turbines. We have maintained a sizable distance from residential property, and as part of this presentation, you will have the opportunity to see a photo montage which gives a visual representation of how the turbines will be presented on the landscape. As wind farm developments can affect wildlife and birds both during construction and operation, the potential impacts have been a key component of the design process. The surveys as part of the analysis have influenced the turbine locations. To reduce the potential impact, turbines have been moved further away from the natural heritage sites to the west. During the analysis, our team has been consulting with Scottish Natural Heritage to ensure best practices are followed. In and around the site, there are several wartime heritage assets. This includes the underground fuel tanks and the former naval headquarters at Lyness. Consultation with Historic Environment Scotland is ongoing, and the siting of turbines has been considered and the potential impacts and will be addressed in the EIA. At previous consultations, we have been asked about the noise impact of turbines this scale at local homes. Our background noise surveys have indicated that due to the distance the closest home is to the site, the possible noise levels experienced will be minimal and below the guidance thresholds. During the construction period, a construction environmental management plan will be produced, which will look to minimise noise and set out agreed working hours. Part of the construction plan will include a traffic management plan. It is likely there will be an increase in traffic during the construction phase, with slight disruption to other road users. The traffic management plan will outline the project requirements and look to keep any disruption to a minimum. Other aspects that we have considered include consulting with telecommunication operators to ensure turbines do not interfere with any links. We are ensuring that we are staying an adequate distance from any watercourses in the area and avoiding any exceptionally deep peatland areas. Another frequently asked question is to do with shadow flicker. Shadow flicker is the flickering effect that can occur when rotating wind turbine blades periodically cast shadows through windows of neighbouring properties. But due to the distance and location of the nearest homes to the site, the impact of shadow flicker is limited. However, a full assessment has been included in the assessment. We have covered the overview of the project and the details around the site on Hoy. Now I'd like to take a minute to tell you about the development process and where you can have your opinions heard. So as you can see from the timeline here, we have selected our site and provided a scoping report to the local planning authority in 2018. With the feedback from the planning authorities and multiple consultees such as Scottish Natural Heritage, Historic Environment Scotland and Scotland Environmental Protection Agency, we proceeded to the next stage of this timeline. The environmental impact assessment, which is the analysis of all the impacts our project may have on the local area. This includes site surveys, desktop studies, and multiple expert consultations, as we've outlined in this presentation. This process helps us determine the best design for all parties involved. It is this stage you can let us know as developers what your thoughts on this project are. This can be done in several methods, as specified on the webpage you found this presentation. And if you have any queries, feel free to contact a member of the Strategic Projects team. The next stage of the process is the submission of the planning application, which for the Hoy site is likely to be before autumn this year. Once the local planning authority has validated the application, all relevant documentation will be made available to the public. This is when you can submit your letters of support or objection to Orkney Islands Council Planning Department or to the Scottish Government if they decide to handle the application. It is then the local planning authority or the Scottish Government will then determine if the project will be approved.
My name is Jo Phillips and I'm the landscape architect responsible for the landscape and visual impact assessment for Orkney's community wind farm project. In order to assess the potential visual effects of the proposed wind farm on Hoy, we have selected 15 viewpoints to represent the views of residents, road users, ferry passengers and walkers in both the local and the wider area. 5 of the 15 viewpoints are presented here as part of this online public consultation. Each slide comprises a photo montage to represent how the views will be changed by the proposed wind farm on Hoy. The first viewpoint is taken from the Lyness Naval Cemetery and has been selected to represent the views of visitors to the cemetery, as well as road users on the B9047. The view looks southwest towards the hill named Wee Fee, where the wind farm would be located at just over 1 kilometre to the closest turbine. While all 6 turbines would be visible, they would all be partly screened by the ridgeline of Wee Fee, apart from the closest 2 turbines, which would be seen at almost their full height. The second viewpoint is located at North Walls School on the B9047 to the south of Lyness, and has been selected to represent the views of people at the school, as well as road users and local residents in this rural area. The view looks northwest towards Wee Fee, where the wind farm would be located at just over 2 kilometres to the closest turbine. While the school faces south to capture the scenic views to South Walls, the view also opens up across the moorland hills to the west and north, where the proposed Hoy wind farm would be seen to its full extent, set across the ridgeline and southern slopes of Wee Fee. The view also includes the existing single turbine at Orkney, seen set at the base of the hill to the right of the proposed turbines. The third viewpoint is located in the village of Longhope on the north coast of South Walls. It has been selected to represent the views of residents in the village, as well as road users on the B9047, which passes through the village. The natural draw of views from Longhope is north across the water. The key feature is the moorland hills upon which the proposed wind farm would be situated, with the closest turbine at a distance of 3.5 kilometres. All 6 turbines would be visible, seen set across the hill slopes of Wee Fee and west into the valley of the Ore Burn. The existing Ore Brae turbine is visible in the right of the photo. The 4th viewpoint is located on the Houghton to Lyness ferry as it passes through the Gutter Sound, with Hoy to the west and Farra to the east. It has been selected to represent the views of passengers on the ferry travelling to and from Hoy. The view looks southwest across Hoy's eastern coastline towards Wee Fee, where the closest turbine would be a distance of 3.5 kilometres. While all 6 turbines would be visible, only 2 would be visible to their full extent, while the other focus would be partly screened by the ridgeline of Wee Fee. The 5th viewpoint is located on the western edge of the village of Orfur, on the west mainland of Orkney. It has been selected to represent the views of road users on the A964 and residents in the village of Orfur and the surrounding rural area. While views are mostly orientated southeast across Scapa Flow towards South Ronaldsay and south towards Flotta, they also extend southeast towards Hoy, and it is in this direction that the proposed wind farm would be seen at a distance of 12.5 kilometres. From this longer range, the turbines would appear as relatively small scale and distant features, occupying a small proportion of the much wider open views across Scapa Flow, and seen associated with the lower moorland hills to the south of the island, separate from the higher hills to the north.